God afton, velkommen til Rauta Channel. Vi har vikinga svart metalband Ereb Altor. Okay, that's about my Swedish language. Sir,
it's actually pretty good.
Please introduce yourself and let me know why you are here.
Well, I'm here to do a show in Turku, of course, and I am Mats, the founder of this band.
And you, sir?
I'm Tord, the drummer and the producer, maybe. Yeah.
All right. So you were saying you're gonna play a show tonight, right after this interview and all, and
yeah.
This is not exactly your first time in Finland. You're gonna bring some of the new stuff to the audience here, I hope.
Yeah, well, we are going to focus on new material since we didn't really tour on the last album because of the pandemic. It was released during the pandemic, so it will be a little bit more focus on the new stuff. But there will some old tunes as well. But you're right, it's not the first time we're in Finland. And I actually lost count. I don't know how many times we've been there, but
we'll here see. We are anyway.
Here we are.
Now, you are labeled in so many places as kind of Viking metal or Viking/black metal band. And going through your discography, I mean, I kind of find it very descriptive. I mean, it kind of suits you. But then again, not all of your albums are exactly, well, black metallic at all. How would you describe yourself if you get to label yourself?
Scandinavian metal.
Scandinavian metal.
Yeah, everything is about the inheritance, lyric-wise, and we have folk touch over the melodies, inspired by the old folk music, but in a metal way, of course. So I would say it's Scandinavian metal. We can't label. We have so many diverse things going on in the band. So it's not black metal. It's not Viking metal. It's not doom metal. It's not heavy metal. It's something else. Well, it's our own metal.
Yeah, you're very unique in style. And when I was revisiting your stuff, it was curious. Like your early albums are very, very epic, doomy, and then you started adding more like black metal elements, like raspy vocals and all that stuff. But your later albums seem more like folk Viking stuff, even though there are these black metal riffs and raspier vocal parts. But it's almost like in a way,
it's a combination of the early albums and the black metal touch that we brought in, and we tried to make a mixture of it in a seamless way if we can. That's been the aim for the last couple of albums, I would say.
But without the folk metal, but without this folk kind of dresses and stuff.
The goofy stuff.
Yeah, the goofy stuff, because
we are metal. We are not goofy.
Yeah, you're not exactly looking like Amon Amarth or those Bathory era with the fur
but I mean, you have a lot of folk metal bands that are kind of, it's more fun than seriousness, you know.
Yeah,
and I think
also music-wise.
Also music-wise, both how you look on stage and how you sound in music. It's kind of more fun, and we try not to have that kind of thing. We don't want to have
like
that same thing.
The grumpy Scandinavian people.
A little bit more
Finnish.
Yeah, a little bit more Finnish. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Now, one thing that kind of struck me when I was listening to your stuff and figuring out like the questions I want to ask. One that is very, very interesting to me personally, and also I think a lot of people want to know, but why on earth did you choose the name for your band from 1980s Swedish role-playing game?
Yeah. Well, this was not a band from the beginning. It was just a fun project that I started with Daniel. Not very serious, so we played that role-playing game back then, and we had some thought of making fantasy lyrics and stuff like that when we recorded the first demo back in ages ago. But the name still stuck with us, even if we never did a fantasy thing about it. But we focused on the history and the myths and legends from Scandinavia instead.
The name of the game is obviously in Swedish.
Drakar och demoner.
Yeah, so basically it's like dragons and demons.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, basically, but Swedish.
It's a Swedish version, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. Yes.
Now the obvious question is, did you guys play it?
I did.
I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
You're not like a fully official member because you didn't play. Just kidding. I come from the role-playing background myself, so I had to ask. But where you like tested, like if you don't know how to roll the dice, you're not gonna.
No, I've never played it, but I think I am a full member actually.
Okay.
Since
anyway.
we're two guys working our asses off with this band, and it's him and me. So yeah, I think so.
All right. Now, like I said, your music is very much inspired by this folky stuff and like the Nordic, Scandinavian heritage and all. But you openly been like a very, very Bathory worshipping band. Also, you even did Bathory cover album, which one of my colleagues named as one of the best cover albums of all times. Your music, however, is not exactly like a Bathory carbon copy because while there are certain Bathory leads, guitar leads especially are very Bathory-esque, but your music combining doom and folk and especially the use of Swedish language, which was never part of the Bathory heritage. Is this like the intentional, like a line drawn, like we want to pay homage to Bathory, but we also want to separate things?
In the beginning, it was the fun project that I spoke about earlier, and that was the aim, was to do some kind of homage to Bathory, because the first two albums more Bathory-ish than the later ones. And I would say, like the finger, you know that finger? It's not a cover album.
Oh.
It's a tribute album.
Oh, well, yeah,
it's
tribute album.
Difference.
Yeah. But I think this was like the wording my colleague used for the...
Yeah. Since the first two albums, many people have asked, why aren't you just trying to do some homage to Bathory by doing a cover or so? And that's idea stuck for years. But in the end, we thought maybe we should do it from the heart.
Yeah.
Like a tribute album. But we don't count it as our own album.
No, it's not. And and it's not kind of copying the Bathory songs, you know, exactly. We have our own kind of
Ereb Altor touch on everything.
Ereb Altor touch on
we rearranged the songs a little bit and
Yeah.
made things differently, so it will sound more like us than Bathory.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Ereb Altor kind of started as a side project of things that you had your previous bands already existing, but at some point you even surpassed with the amount of albums you've done with Ereb Altor than any of your previous bands. Did that change like some point, like this is the main band instead of a side band, side project or whatever?
Yeah, of course it did. Of course. But it was not the plan from the beginning, but you can't decide how these things turn out from the beginning. You never know. It's all about the demand and stuff like that. So it's easier. I only play in two bands. It's easily a doom band and Ereb Altor, and doom is very hard.
Yeah, your early albums are indeed quite doomy, and then it starts to divert from the doomier sense, and you started adding like black metal parts, which reminded me of like, okay, while these first two albums are like the kind of epic Bathory thing, like more, like a doomy Twilight of the Gods, Hammerheart, and all that stuff, and then you started adding these raspy vocals. It's like very like a opposite direction where Bathory was going like from black metal to Viking metal. They're like, oh, let's twitch it around. But
yeah, we did it the wrong way, or they did it the wrong way. Yeah, we did it the right way. I don't know.
But your melodies, with your have like around the mid albums or even the later ones, they're very, very Swedish sounding. I mean, you get like instantly like, okay, you're putting like, this is 1990s, this is early 2000s Swedish thing. How hard or easy, for that matter, it is to making like Swedish black metal things, you know, like sounding Swedish when you're exactly coming from the very same scene?
I don't know. Christer writes the riffs and stuff, and I maybe change them or something like that. But I guess it's kind of natural when you're grown up in Sweden or Finland or Norway. I think it's a lot of it comes natural.
Are you inspired by the local scene, if you will, in that sense?
Not really.
So is it more like a coincidence in a way?
It comes naturally, I think.
I think so.
Since you have kind of gone a little bit away from the black metallic, I mean the amount, how much it's used, is that something that you also do naturally? like balance things out between the doomier and the folkier and the blacker parts, or is it something that you have to like consciously think that okay, this is maybe a little bit too much black metal, or this needs more clean vocals?
That's perhaps a little more intentionally. That's something you think about when you're composing. So that's you force it to sound. You try to tie the knots together to get a blend, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we producing the albums, the songs, you know, for pre-production, we talk a lot about the stuff like that. To find it has to be a bit, you know, harsher or whatever.
So you kind of
what do you want to
achieve,
push forward to the listener, you know?
All right.
What is it you're looking for here? We need some more of this guitar, some more. Maybe we need another guitar
balance things.
Balance a bit, something like that. Yeah.
Now let's talk about a little bit of the lyrics. You said very much Scandinavian things and the folker. Can you a little bit elaborate on that? Because some of the stuff you do is indeed Swedish, and it's not that international in a way. How important role Swedish language is the DNA of Ereb Altor in that sense?
Well, at some points it actually suits better with Swedish, and some points English. I don't know. I never decide beforehand, but it's easier to be a bit more poetic in Swedish, since it's my mother tongue.
Yeah.
But the lyrics is inspired from things or events or myths and legends and stuff like that from where we come from. You find reading books and visiting places and nature and everything inspired from it.
Do you have one particular source, like this is the most inspiring, like could it be a book or a country or a place or story?
It's many books during the years, so it's not one particular book. That has never been like that. It's perhaps on the Järtekan album where almost half of the album is from the same story, and that's inspired from the same book. It's a real happening from 1600s in Sweden.
Yeah, the end.
Yeah. And the end, Ragnarök. Yeah. It's the common Norse mythology.
Yeah.
But on Järtekan it was a Swedish guy that made a pact with I don't know the English name for it, but it's skogsrå in Swedish. It's a forest creature, it's a magical creature. And the priests didn't like that back then, so they actually sentenced him to death because he was in league with the devil or something like that.
So kind of like a witch hunt in a way.
Yeah.
All right.
It's happened a lot of places in history with witch hunting. You have the witch hunting as well.
Of course.
Also, we deal with that subject as well, because it's a part of Swedish history as well as every other country.
Now, a lot of Norwegian bands, more or less in a black metallic ways, have all, of course, touched the subjects of, Norse mythology, going through the topics like Fenris or Odin or Thor, etc., etc. How much Swedish storyline differs from Norwegian, or do you sometimes feel like these are overlapping with whatever you were writing from the...
Of course they are overlapping. The only real source we have is from Iceland, so... and then you interpret it in different ways, perhaps, but it's the same.
Do you ever feel like some kind of a camaraderie ship, like, hey, these guys are thinking exactly like us, or is it more like, no, these guys are writing these stories way more silly than what it should be, or whatever?
Well, everyone has the right to be artistic in their own way.
Yeah.
Or
yeah, of course, but we talked about folk metal, and I mean, a lot of bands get kind of silly.
Yeah,
horns.
Yeah,
swords and muscles, and
I guess they're pretty successful. A lot of bands are pretty successful doing that, but it's not for us. We won't do it that way because we don't like that way.
No, it's more mythology.
Yeah.
Now, talking about some kind of this gets a little darker or more serious, but of course you have lots of tattoos and these are, of course, telling a story that we have some kind of a Viking stories here and all that, and of course, Baphomet kind of stuff. Now, obviously, these are sometimes that nowadays, when everything is seen too political and all that stuff, and I've heard even from places in Sweden that sometimes Viking tattoos or jewelry or whatever can get you into trouble because people are seeing like, okay, this is some kind of a political statement, even though it's not. Do you ever get into trouble for like, okay, you're having those tattoos, you have to hide them?
I've heard about stuff like that, but I've never met it.
Yeah.
I've never experienced it, no.
So it's not like that serious even in Sweden?
No, definitely not.
Have you had
not yet, but it's silly and it's stupid because it has nothing to do with political things.
No.
Yeah, that is something that everybody in metal knows, but sometimes I feel it because I've gotten those, well, more or less direct accusations sometimes because I'm like a fan of Viking stories, for instance. And sometimes people are trying to label, okay, you have that tattoo, or you have that and that shirt, and you are labeled as such, and I'm like, whatever you say, it's like getting boxed in. But you haven't had any of these situations, not even outside Sweden.
I think the closest we came to it was, I don't know if we played a festival or if we were talking about playing a festival, and they told us don't talk too much about this Odin and Thor and stuff because some people
happens
might
sometimes in a contract.
Don't talk too much about it on stage because it can be.
But it's our history.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
For us,
they're like canceling your history and like saying like it's okay to talk about Jesus and whatever, and people like whatever. But if you mention Odin, you're gonna burn like a.
Yeah. There are political bands, and that's fine. If you want to be a political band, fine with me. But we are not a political band, and we will never.
And this is something that I wanted to ask because I know a lot of people. It seems like you and me, we don't want to get these things mixed. And this is why I want this to have on camera because I think people need to understand right there that
we are doing art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
No, do you have a certain kind of a Viking favorite story? I ask you a favorite sources, but do you have a certain character or archetype that is like the most inspiring for you?
I would say Loki, because without Loki it wouldn't be that interesting, I suppose.
That's a good point.
And then you have the long story about the end of the era of the gods. Yeah. And it has everything to do about Loki because he is the deceiver and he's doing men. But he all through the mythology, he is the one that actually makes some interesting choices that makes it interesting. Otherwise, everyone would be happy and eating and drinking mead or whatever. It has to. What is Star Wars without Darth Vader?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Now, a lot of popular culture nowadays seems to be, of course, tapping into the world of Viking myths and making their own interpretations of that. Whether we're talking about Marvel movies or whether we're talking about video games such as God of War games and all that stuff, they seem to take their own ways of dealing with this and that, and sometimes it's just kind of rewriting the whole thing. Are you exploring any of that one, or is it something that out of boundaries, so to say?
I am not exploring it very much, to be honest. I don't play video games and I don't watch Marvel movies either, so I don't know. I've seen the series of Vikings. That was the TV series. I think it was pretty nice. But
well,
it's a popular culture. It has its uprise with the Viking stuff, I think. Yeah,
I think so. And I watched the Norwegian, though. Is it called Ragnarok or something like that? The Norwegian series. And it was kind of another take on it, And it's cool. But we still have what we know from the,
You go for the original sources and all that.
Yeah, of course. But I think I don't have.
You always have to make something up, because there are no sources that saying this was in history, historic events, but in mythology it's fairy tales, and you can interpret them the way you want, I think.
Now we're getting way around all the other topics, but music. Before I let you go, because I've got the time sign here waving, what kind of music inspires you these days to go even further into the depths of Ereb Altor? What kind of bands?
You can start.
I don't know. I listen to a lot of black metal, but I listen to a lot of other stuff as well. And I don't know. When we work with Ereb Altor, I usually don't listen that much to someone else's music. I only listen to that and work with that and try to find what it's good for this song and this, you know. I don't know. I don't have a really good answer. You know.
Well, that's a good answer nonetheless.
I am more or less the guy that's tried to put something different in all the time, and we have to discuss the things I come up with. But mention bands is hard. I listen to a lot of music as well.
Old or new?
No, mostly old. Like I listen to Norwegian band Gåte. I like folk music, and I try to blend as much as the old folk music in. But I also like metal, so I try to combine it somehow. But I don't have a real source like that, I think.
I mean, I'm asking because sometimes people are like, of course, unconsciously, you know, taking ideas here and there, and then there are bands like albums. I'm going to use this as an example. Like, for example, Dark Throne's Panzerfaust is like a tribute to early Celtic Frost and all that stuff. And sometimes people are like, okay, I'm inspired by Burzum, or I'm inspired by Metallica or Iron Maiden or whatever. So
Bathory is an inspiration, of course, but pretty obvious. So I didn't mention it.
But what is the best Bathory album in your opinion?
My heart is saying Hammerheart, but my head is saying Twilight of the Gods.
Very good. What about you, sir?
I think I have to say the same answer for me.
This is boring because I would pick Hammerheart out of anyway. Before you guys go, what album? Not to mention the latest one, of course. What album or even song, if you want to, people should start listening to Ereb Altor in case they're like newbies, like, hey, I just found about this band. Which one should they go first to give the best version of Ereb Altor?
And I couldn't say the last one?
Yeah, of course, because always bands say, like, this is our best one.
Yeah, if it wasn't, we should quit. And I think the last album is where we succeeded the most in blending the styles together in the best way.
But if you
that's for me. I say Vargtimman. It's the best album to start with, and then go backwards.
Time of the Wolf. Yep. But does it translate like that? Or Hour of the Wolf?
It's actually a sentence from Strindberg, you know, a Swedish writer. It's the hour of the wolf. It's the time of the day where most people dies, and it's during the last hours before you wake up. It's like you sit up during the night and you wonder about your life and stuff like that, and then you die.
This is some anecdote for you. Now, what is your favorite except the latest one?
Well, it's kind of depending on what people like, but if they are more into doomy stuff, I would say By Honor, because By Honor is a really nice album.
Second album, if I
the first album.
First album, yeah. There was a demo before, but the first album, it's a really nice album. But if you want a little bit more black stuff, well, Gastric, of course, and maybe Gastric then.
All right.
This is the most blacky. You know.
Do you have a certain favorite song of all albums that you would say this is?
No, then I have to go on the latest album, I guess. Yeah, I think the song Vargtimman, because it's a really good song.
All right. Now, people out there, we have to let these gentlemen go. But now you should have a vague idea what these guys are all about. Vikings, folk stories, black metal, and everything combined. Guys, any words of wisdom you want to share with the audience? Like, this is your wisdom to the younger version of yourself. Go. Very easy.
Oh, well, listen to Bathory.
Be yourself and don't follow the fucking trends.
Yeah.
This is a very good way to end this whole discussion. Hopefully someday we should do part 2. And now off you go, do your homework, start with the chosen albums these guys recommended. I would say they're all very consistent and good quality, even if a little bit different, so there are no wrong answers. Go to listen some Ereb Altor and catch these guys live. We surely will tonight. This is Rauta, this is Ereb Altor. Bye-bye. All right, before you go, quick photos.
Yeah.
First of all, they will be